Your article was spectacular. What did you learn most from talking to people and doing some research on how this is going to go? Obviously, the open and the lead got a lot of play with them changing the way they're going to attack flying people in, and the coach conversation, flying people in coach, and middle seat coach like Dan Quinn has gotten a lot of publicity lately. What are some of the other stories and things that you've learned researching this story?
Well, I think from there's the idea out there that there's too many cooks in the kitchen with this Bears search, whether it's the interview committee to how many candidates they've reached out to and hope to talk to. And right now we know that there's 4 interviews done. Pete Carroll just finished a little bit ago. They've got a long way to go in this first round before they can start narrowing down their candidates and flying people in. I do think it's interesting that the majority of these, so far as we know, are happening virtually, when you have someone like Pete Carroll, someone like Mike Vrabel, who are not coaching right now. And I mean, Drew Petzing is not on a team that's in the playoffs. You can fly these people in for the first round. I know the Bears, there's been this school of thought that, this is a personality-driven business, regardless of the round of these interviews. You should do them in person when you can. I honestly think this is a scheduling thing, because they have so many different people that they want to meet with, that getting them done over Zoom first and foremost means that you're really, when you are flying people in, that's the people you're really prioritizing. So you can read into that more. But, they're trying to do it differently. I know the wide net approach turns a lot of people off when you see how many interviews the New England Patriots are not doing, but that's the route they're going to try to be thorough. And more than anything else, there's a lot of information gathering that they're doing, and frankly, it becomes information poaching. When you have that many voices in a process here, and you're trying to gather as much information as you can, some of it, not saying they're sham interviews by any stretch, not saying that at all, but some of this you're going in being what ideas can we take from this candidate, knowing that they're probably not the top of our list, but try to apply that to our process, but also to, the philosophy that we're going to be building here with this coaching staff. Who aligns most closely to our vision, but are there ideas we're not thinking of out there that we can take on as our own? That's how it works from all of these things. Because here's how, an interesting thing I found out is that the league office does not mandate that you send these interviews in because it's a competitive disadvantage to do that. But all of these interviews are taped. All of the Zoom interviews are filed somewhere, but they're all recorded because they're used at the accelerator program for the GMs that are the people that want to be general managers that are going through that process, and they meet with owners and all of that. So these are available. So I'm curious, just how the things going on behind the scenes and what it looks like.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people, there's a lot of new voices that are part of this process. Ryan Poles, Kevin Warren were not here the last time around. So, in doing it differently, it's everything from how they're flying people in when they do get to those rounds of the interviews, the travel accommodations. And I know that it looks like they were being cheap. I frankly think this is just part of processes that had been deeply rooted and nobody did anything differently about it. So while it does feel like a small thing, it's a big thing in the eyes of the candidates who want to go to a place that's a first-class organization and want to be doing things differently than they've done it in the past. And I think the optics of that are something that the Bears are certainly trying to change.
To that point, we were trying to rationalize this with the amount of people who are on the panel, or with Warren in there and George in there. Do you believe, especially in these first-round interviews, that it's Poles running the show and asking all the questions, and then maybe some people have questions at the end? Or do you believe that Kevin would interject with something and then maybe someone else could interject? How do you believe this is being run in the interview?
Well, let's go back to Tuesday. Kevin Warren and George McCaskey sitting off to the side and then taking questions off to the side outside of the press conference room was by design. This organization really struggled with that press conference at the beginning of December. To have Ryan Poles as the front-facing figurehead of this coaching search, you needed to set that precedent. So he's the head of your football operation. He's going to be the one leading those questions. I'm sure that as a committee, when you have 6 people on it as of right now. And if Ian Cunningham, like depending on what happens, we saw that his name was thrown into the mix for Tennessee today for their open GM job. Like 6 people is a good amount to make sure that voices are heard, but not everybody's talking. So I would imagine that if Ryan Poles is leading this search, and we've heard this now multiple times, that he's the one who's going to be running point on it. If you're running point, you're running point in the conversations too. Like that would get out if it's Kevin Warren or if it's somebody else that's asking the majority of the questions. I promise you that part would get out. For Ryan Poles to be the one who is ultimately making this decision, he's got to be the one asking the hard questions and getting to the bottom of their candidate pool and figuring out who's going to be moving forward, who's not. And those questions from somebody who just went through 3 years of this with one coach are going to be really important to determine, do I want to sign up for another, however many years? If I'm a candidate, do I want to sign up for this many years with this guy as my general manager? I think that's super critical in why he's got to be the one, asking the majority of the questions in these interviews.
Courtney, they obviously want to find someone that meets all of the criteria that can solve most of, if not all of their problems. But if you had to prioritize, and I'm asking you to speculate on their prioritizing of this situation, do you think they're more interested in a guy that can positively change the culture or someone that can fix an offense that they've invested tremendous resources in and have gotten virtually no return on that investment?
I know what Pohl said the other day when he was asked about, do you prioritize an offensive coach for a young quarterback, and that there is an ideal fit, but you can't, just go that direction. And if the guy's a terrible leader, you're not bringing him in the building. But I do think that the prioritization of offense, I really think that they've got to go that route. You don't want to waste your investment of Caleb Williams by having somebody who might bring in an offensive coordinator that leaves in a year, because if they get it on track, if the offense looks the way that they hope it does next year, if that offensive coordinator, regardless of whether it's whoever it is, that person's going to be getting looks for a job. So I think the way that you can mitigate that is by having your head coach be the play caller, the offensive mind, the person who's installing a system that you're hoping to breed a franchise quarterback in. So of course, you hope that leadership, character, accountability, you hope that you get all of those things in one candidate. And ultimately, you should be picking the candidate that gives you a little bit of everything in the best way possible. But I think it comes down to, when you're talking business, I think it comes down to, can you get the right offensive fit in here? Because the offense that Caleb was in all season long, and yes, Thomas Brown was running Shane Waldron's offense. He was tweaking some things, but it wasn't his system. It was too complicated. It's a progression-based offense, and it just was too complicated for a young quarterback. You've got to bring somebody in who can give you the structure of an offense that makes sense. And I get it. Leadership matters. Accountability matters. But I don't know. I feel like you're going to get a version of that. Everybody leads in a different way, but I wouldn't just go the other route and forego having the right offense here, because then you're going to be at square one again. It's like, what you've got to pick your priority of what you want to accomplish, and what you want to accomplish is getting the most out of the quarterback in the unit, frankly, that you just invested millions into and got nothing out of it.
Yeah, and you drafted a quarterback first overall, and then this year you've watched Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and at times Drake May play better than that guy. So I'm with you. I think that for the first time. And this is just blind hope. For the first time, I think they really get it up there based on what they've invested in that offense and this young quarterback.
I'm with you. And I'll give you my pick at the end. That's why I think they go offensive-minded coach, because you can't. Year 2 is so pivotal, as we saw with Justin Fields when he was put into Luke Getsy's offense and all the undoing they had to do for him in year 2. If you don't get it right by year 2, and then you're going into the third year wondering, is this the guy or not, then you're in an Anthony Richardson Colt situation. You're in a situation like other quarterbacks have found themselves in across the NFL, and it's just not a good place to be.
All right, so what is your pick then? Are you going Ben Johnson?
I'm going Joe Brady, actually. I'm going to go offense.
Wow.
And I think for a number of reasons. So obviously we don't know when his interview's scheduled or if Buffalo is granting it. We know that the interview request is put in earlier in the week. I do not, from what I'm hearing, don't look past don't look past like the connection between him and Caleb Williams. I think he's a very intriguing candidate for that reason. And I mean, Buffalo's numbers, on offense, doing more with less this year, kind of stand out to me. I mean, ninth best rushing offense, ninth best passing offense, number 2 overall in points in scoring. They do a lot of really good things in Buffalo. Ben Johnson's a hot name, understandably so. Something about it, just with him being like allegedly the can't miss prospect as a head coach, makes me think that he probably will be the one that they end up missing out on, just because sometimes you don't get your top choice. I think Joe Brady would be a good alternative, and one that maybe we're not talking about enough, considering all of the things I mentioned. And maybe that offense is a better fit for Caleb Williams than the Ben Johnson offense of the Detroit Lions.
I don't know how Chicago Bears fans will feel about this, but Joe Brady also represented by Trace Armstrong.
Yes, that is true. That has been making circulating in league circles.
Yeah. Isn't that, again, like the Ohio State quarterback
I'm with
thing?
you, absolutely.
Like,
I'm not blaming Trace because the previous hires haven't worked out. That's on them to hire the right guy up at Hallis Hall.
Like again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Can we say one thing about that? There are so few. Like usually, most coaches are represented by the same handful of people. Whether it's Richmond Flowers, whether it's Bob Lamont, Trace Armstrong, Marvin Demoff. It's not like it is with player agents.
Right.
So those who are NFLPA certified, there's far fewer coaching agents than there are player agents. Yes, I know the connection that we've talked about with Athletes First, Trace Armstrong and Chicago Bears. Is there maybe preference given? Does he have a role in the process? I think that there is something there, certainly, but I don't think that I don't think that you should, stay away from Trace Armstrong clients by any stretch, considering, there's only a handful of these guys that are representing the top coaches in the NFL right now.
Agreed.
Courtney, great work as always. Keep us posted, okay?
Thanks, Courtney.
Thanks, guys. Take care.